When we encounter a psychopath, certain questions typically arise in our minds. Why is this person acting this way? Is it entirely their nature, or has the society they belong to shaped them into such an individual? And how is it that those around this psychopath fail to notice them? The American Psycho novel, along with its film adaptation, generated considerable controversy upon release. The work critiques many aspects of society, often in a satirical and mocking manner. Among the topics it addresses are consumer culture, masculinity, and the desire for approval from others. Set in the 1980s, the story's protagonist, Patrick Bateman, is a wealthy, educated, and handsome man working on Wall Street. Despite being highly polished and part of an elite social class, Patrick harbors a dark personality. He is a true psychopath and a sadistic serial killer. He primarily murders homeless people, disliked co-workers, and women in his life. Although it is easy to see that Patrick has a deeply troubled mind, those around him are not entirely different from him. Patrick's boss, for instance, is too oblivious to recognize the signs of his deteriorating mental health. The first aspect of the film that deserves attention is the obsession with image, a trait shared by Patrick and nearly all the characters in the film. From the very beginning, it's clear that Patrick is extremely narcissistic and eager to impress others. His life consists of luxury venues, expensive clothes, and high society gatherings, and he never misses an opportunity to flaunt his lifestyle. In every activity he engages in, his focus is on how he appears to others, his image. When someone shows up with a more valuable suit than his, or when a coworker's business card looks more stylish than his own, Patrick experiences intense bouts of jealousy. Everything Patrick owns must always be of higher quality, more expensive, and more prestigious than what others have. We need to consider why Patrick places such importance on his possessions. A person's excessive value on their belongings and using them as tools in a status competition is a concept explored in Baudrillard's theory of sign value. For instance, what makes an item valuable? According to the concept of sign value, the true worth of an object is determined not by its function or production quality, but by the prestige it holds among people. For example, imagine two identical t-shirts with different brands, one cheap and one expensive. Even if people knew these t-shirts were identical, the expensive branded t-shirt would be valued more. Even if the cheaper t-shirt had higher quality fabric, the situation wouldn't change, because the sign value, the status and prestige associated with the expensive t-shirt, surpasses the other. Thus, the brand name becomes more significant than the function or quality of the t-shirt. Returning to the film, we can see that Patrick and the society he lives in align with this concept. Particularly, Patrick constantly compares his image to those of his coworkers, and tries to understand who has the higher sign value, who prefers items or brands that catch people's attention the most. The best example of this is the famous business card scene, where his coworkers show off their business cards, and when Patrick sees ones that are better than his own, he falls into a jealous rage. Is it normal to attach such significance to a simple business card? After all, the function of a business card is quite simple: to provide information about a person's role in a company. Patrick's obsession with the meaning of a simple business card, and his fixation on even the smallest visual details, demonstrate how much importance he places on the concept of sign value, on how his belongings appear to others, rather than their function. In fact, these people are much like their business cards, outwardly polished but lacking much function. Throughout the film, we rarely see them actually working. Patrick usually listens to music and thinks about where to go in the evening, while his co-workers are shown drinking and gossiping in between scenes. We can conclude that their obsession with image has disconnected them from reality, turning them into dysfunctional individuals. The next concept we should discuss in relation to this topic is hyperreality. Imagine playing a video game we love. If we play this game for a long time without taking a break, the game world immerses us so deeply that when we exit the game and return to real life, we experience a momentary disorientation. We have lived the reality presented by the game so intensely and passionately that the realities of life become increasingly blurred. Baudrillard defines situations that draw us into their own reality and disconnect us from the real world as hyperreality. He suggests that prolonged exposure to hyperreality desensitizes a person. I used a video game as an example, but Baudrillard, who lived during the time when television was the most popular medium, used TV as an example. According to Baudrillard, a viewer watches war news on TV with the same indifference as a toilet paper commercial. Even if the war in the news continues after the TV is turned off, for the viewer, the war ends when they turn off the television. The relationship between the viewer and the television is a form of hyperreality. Everything in this realm is just images and lifeless. Returning to the film, we can see that hyperreality and the desensitization it brings are heavily emphasized. Patrick, like Baudrillard's example of the television, is a person made up of images and is lifeless. His conversations with friends are so insincere and artificial that it's clear he rehearsed what he would say beforehand. The other characters aren't much different from Patrick. They forget each other's names several times throughout the story. But desensitization doesn't stop with these examples. In one scene, Patrick puts a dead body in a bag, and while loading the bag into the trunk, he encounters a co-worker. Despite the bag leaking blood and taking on the shape of a human body, making it easy to infer there's a corpse inside, the co-worker asks about the bag's brand instead of realizing it contains a body. The most critical example of desensitization is how others react to Patrick's confessions. Patrick is aware that he has mental health issues. He can't control his urge to kill, and sometimes he even confesses this urge to those around him. But the people around him don't take his confessions seriously. They either ignore them or think he's joking. So, can we call this film realistic? Viewers who find some scenes difficult to understand should realize that at its core, this story offers a sharp critique. The story focuses on 1980s America. This film serves as a sort of documentary of that era. During this period, America experienced an economic boom under the liberal policies of its presidents. Taxes decreased, product market values rose, and many people had the chance to become wealthy. It was also a time when indulgences like drug use and sexuality saw significant increases in both lifestyle and media. The concept of the yuppie emerged during this era, referring to ambitious and young professionals in America who had received a good education and earned high salaries. These people loved to show off, with luxury cars, homes, restaurants, expensive brand items, and parties as part of their lifestyle. We can say that the film successfully captures the lifestyle of that era. For example, Patrick is a fan of Donald Trump, one of the famous socialites of that time. He gets excited whenever he sees something related to Trump and secretly aspires to be like him. Patrick's main concern is that he always wants to be like someone else. This desire stems from his need to fit in and not fall behind others. But on the other hand, he struggles with his identity as a serial killer while trying to conform. Strangely, even if Patrick could become like them, he still wouldn't gain a unique identity within society, because these characters are not individuals but images. At the beginning, we mentioned that these characters are so desensitized that they forget each other's names. In fact, one reason they confuse names could be that they are so similar to one another. Same haircuts, same clothes, same speech patterns. It's hard to tell them apart. They are like products from the same brand. In a structure where the concepts we've discussed, sign value and hyperreality, are so prevalent, Patrick, who may seem alive and impressive on the outside, is, at his core, lifeless and soulless. He is aware that he is not an individual, but rather an image, an illusion. The ending of the film leaves viewers with questions. Patrick confesses to his lawyer that he killed Paul Allen, but the lawyer claims he had met Paul just a few days earlier. Throughout the story, there are several scenes disconnected from reality. For instance, no one reacts when Patrick carries his bloody bag. He is able to use a gun skillfully against the police, and no one hears the electric saw when he turns it on in a critical moment. Considering these events, we can't help but wonder if everything happening is just a product of Patrick's imagination. However, the author of the book doesn't provide a definitive answer to whether these murders are real or just in Patrick's mind. He states that his goal is not to answer whether these events are real, but to create a sense of uncertainty and doubt in the reader. The film's director also mentions that the purpose of the scene with the lawyer was to leave the audience with an open-ended conclusion, suggesting that Patrick might have imagined everything. However, the central question of the story isn't whether Patrick's actions are real or imagined. What the story aims to show us is that a psychopath like Patrick can easily exist in such a society, and that the people around him have become so desensitized that they fail to notice the psychopath right next to them. Because in a world so disconnected, and where brands have overtaken human identity, even if a killer openly confesses their crimes, no one will notice.